First, let's get to 3 examples of how they spend other people's money. The other people's money being you and being a Monday. Most people, of course, you work for the government on a Monday and a Tuesday, depending on how much you earn. It could be into a Wednesday, maybe Thursday, if you happen to be particularly lucky. Well, this one involves the Greens. Now, you may well have heard some of this detail, but some of the stuff you haven't heard is just a wowzer. Now, as we know, the Greens are more pure than anyone in the Australian Parliament.
This is a government that's prepared to waste billions and billions of dollars.
The government can take these billions of dollars and build a nuclear submarine or 2.
This government wastes billions. That is a waste of public money.
This project, which is being funded with Australian taxpayers' money.
Clearly a massive waste of money.
Every cent that can be spent should be spent on the Australian public, on lifting those up who cannot lift themselves, on making the welfare safety net stronger than ever before. Unless, of course, they want to spend money on themselves. Now, the Greens have fewer members of federal parliament than they did after the 2022 election. Remember, 3 of their 4 lower house MPs, including the leader, gone. They've gone from 14 to 11. But you have paid for a renovation to the Greens party room. Remember, when anyone else is spending money, it's a waste of money. When it's money they are spending on themselves, it was hard to find a Green today. They didn't wish to speak. The Department of Parliamentary Staff told Senate estimates on Monday total construction costs associated with the 4th party room, $1.6 million. Now, remember, at the absolute height, 14 MPs, now down to 11. They had to renovate the room. Previously, documents released to the Senate to the Coalition's finance spokesperson, James Patterson, said the practical completion of the costs was $886,000. However, the department officials have now added in the additional numbers of $452,000, $289,000, which gets you to $1.6 million. When asked about this today, the relevant boffin was trying to find a reason as to why renovating one room in our federal parliament costs $1.6 million for 14 people to sit in. The Assistant Secretary of Property Services said that the rebuild area, which included demolition, cabling, hot and cold water connections. Now, again, you want to renovate your house, you could build an entire house for less than $1 million. Oh, you want to change one room in Parliament? 1.6. He said that there were extra considerations required for the construction projects in Parliament House because the design intent of the original architects needed to be put in place. What, a white wall? Now, again, Parliament House is a beautiful building. The party rooms are not spectacular and ornate. They're not full of Tasmanian wood. There's not the fine finishes of craftsmen and women from around the country. They are effectively concrete walls that have been painted. Skirting boards are fancy, but not $1.6 million. When they spend it on themselves, are absolutely necessary. This crap has been going on for years, yet any spending anyone else does, that's wasteful, it's nasty. They're spending on themselves. Well, again, have a look at the Mirror, which I presume also got a dust up in the Greens party room. Example number 2 of other people's money, how they spend what you work too damn hard for. This is more serious, but another example about spin, and it comes from the Deputy Prime Minister and Defence Minister today, Richard Marles. Now, I won't bore you with the details, but essentially all of the different parts of the Defence Department that are about buying stuff are all now going to be pushed into one organisation. Apparently there will be no significant job losses, maybe a boss here and a boss there. And here is the Defence Minister explaining why all of this somehow is going to save us money.
This is one of the most significant reforms to defence that we have seen. It will greatly change the way that defence operates. It will greatly improve the quality of the defence spend. and it will make sure that as we spend more money in the defence budget, we are doing so in a way which sees programs delivered on time and on budget.
Look, we know the submarines a long time off. What about the missiles in the far north of Australia? What about the capacity for us to be able to intercept a missile if one gets sent here? Can we invest in that now? Or no, sorry, we've got to rebuild the Greens party room. And I get it, 1.6 in defence doesn't go that far, but I'd much prefer it spent on that than obviously what the Greens were doing. Now, remember, we have a situation when it comes to the Australian federal budget that for as far as the eye can see, the Treasurer, Jim Chalmers, has built a system that will be in deficit for at least the next 40 years. $1 trillion in debt quickly becomes $2 trillion. But before they start giving themselves too many high fives about how much money they're saving, can I actually give you an idea about just how relatively small defence is to the Australian federal budget? This is from their own budget papers. I ain't making it up. Defence is 6% of budgetary spending. Social security and welfare is 37%. Defence is $51.5 billion a year. Social security and welfare, $291 billion. They want to get serious about truly saving the budget, but of course they won't do anything about that because they want to push that number as high as possible on social security and welfare. Why? Because of that triangle of dependence. You want people working for you, which is why even when you rearrange deck chairs on the bureaucracy of the Titanic, you don't sack anyone. It's why you find new ways to give people money that they didn't ask for. And of course, you try to create a scenario where business, the biggest client, is government. If they're serious about spending and saving money, why not a focus on some of these areas? But of course, cut is their whole way that they scare the ever-ballooning amount of people who get their hand fed by the government. And example number 3 of how they spent other people's money. Our old mate Chris Bowen. When Chris Bowen was out there trying to suck up to world leaders, demanding and hoping that Australia would get to host the next version of the climate conference that he attended, with $1 billion left aside, alas, we know it didn't work out. Well, in terms of the number of people that went on the behalf of the good Australian public, the ones who couldn't do it on Zoom had to be there in person, presumably not flying up the back of the plane. Albanese's government drops as much as $40,000 per person. 43 civil servants went. So throw on top of that the minister, the assistant minister, the side minister for this and that, the number is going to get closer to 50. The Department of Climate Change and Energy has confirmed $1.6 million. What is it with $1.6 million? $1.6 million gets people to go over to COP30. $1.6 million gets a new party room for a party that has fewer MPs than it did before the election. Indicative budgeted costs for travel, accommodation and other expenses covering 43 civil servants, including 32 from the Department of Climate Change and Energy. The back of the envelope sums gets you to $38,000 per person. Unsurprisingly, some coalition senators are noticing that this is a waste of your money.
Lots of international travel, lots of conferences. We've got the part-time energy minister. Now he's the president of COP negotiations. As I've said, Kieran, I really think that it's time for this Prime Minister to perhaps suggest that Chris Bowen stays in Turkey, does that job, and he appoints someone else.
And this was just for those people to, of course, go. Now, remember, the conference that never was and never will be in Adelaide was going to cost $1 billion. Well, of course, because they were going to do that within less than a year's time, a bit like the Commonwealth Games in Victoria, that Daniel Andrews, and who was the minister? That's right, Jacinta Allen, pulled out. There's millions of dollars in contracts which have already been signed. I don't know what for, presumably the sign writers and the pillow fluffers. I don't know what the jobs were. But the head of COP31 operations, Andrew Hutchison, told the parliamentary committee today, I'm sorry there's a lot of things I'm reading to you today, but the tape is very hard to find. Surprise, surprise. But thankfully there's a record of what they're spending. $7.5 million has already been committed to. So even though we're not getting it, we knew we weren't getting it for months and months. We knew that Turkey was the one who they preferred. No. We kept signing documents. You pay. $7.5 million. Now, all of this annoys me because in this country, we like to tell ourselves that we are so compassionate, and if somebody falls through the cracks, then we are there to take care of them. The reality, as I have told you for years now, is that that is not true. I had a moving experience when we were in Echuca on Saturday when I was talking to a local community worker at Harvey Norman about their battle for funding. That little organisation, if they don't do what they do when it comes to providing food, 50 families won't have food at all. Oh, there's $1.6 million to renovate the greens. There's $1.6 million for the travel to a COP. There's $7 and a bit million for the preparing of an event that they never got the chance to host.